You are listening to Paradox Untold Stories from Athletic Directors. I'm Dr. Danielle Lapointe, and my co-host is Dr. Dustin Smith. Today we are in Oklahoma with Emily Barkley. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
So good to have you today. We're going to get right into it, but first we have a special message from our sponsor, Spicket. On March 16th at 12:30 Eastern Time, Spicket and the NIAAA are putting on a webinar called The Evolution of Digital Ticketing. That would be a great one to catch and hear some digital ticketing tips from an all-star panel of ADs, including Russ Waterman, Greg Shook, Ryan Adams, and Paradox alum Becky Moran. Be sure to register for it, and the link to do that is in this episode's description. So, Dustin, are you ready to get into it? You want to introduce Emily?
Hey, I know she's probably cringing at this, but for me, it was like, you know how you are at Christmas Eve and you know Christmas is coming and there's presents coming or maybe Santa's coming to visit and it's a big event in your life when you're growing up. Well, this is a big event for me because I have a ton of respect for Emily Barkley. Um, I, I tell her that she's my favorite Barkley. Her husband is a basketball coach at Rogers State University. And back in my collegiate days, I'm a recovering collegiate athletic director. And back in those days, we had some battles with Justin Barkley and Rogers State, and we came out on the wrong end of that. So to preface all of that, saying that he's not my favorite Barkley, he's my least favorite. That's her husband, but Emily is the athletic director at Union High School. And we'll talk about geography and that, but we'll talk about some of that history because Union is the standard. Union and Jeeks have been the standard in athletics in Oklahoma for a long, long, long time. And it's no surprise to me because of the leadership that they have there. But Emily Barkley has been the president of the NIAAA. She is very active in her state. We'll talk about some of that stuff, but I am super excited to have Union's AD, Emily Barkley, here. And Emily and I go back a long time. Back when I was at the collegiate level, she hosted our conference tournament at her facility. So it's an incredible facility. And then they just upgraded their football stadium. So we'll talk about that just a little bit later. But Emily, I'm excited to have you. I'm pumped to talk to you and get to visit with you and laugh with you today.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me. Dustin, like I said, we've known each other for quite a while. Enjoyed when they got to come here. He was very well respected as an athletic director on the Division II level, and I enjoyed getting to know him. And Danielle, I'll enjoy getting to know you, even in the short time prior to this. So I look forward to creating a friendship there. So thank you all for having me.
So Emily, as we begin this, we talk about your husband being a basketball coach at the collegiate level, and with the transfer portal and NIL and all that goes into that, and he's constantly recruiting, constantly game planning. How in the world do you have any time with him and your daughter being an AD yourself at the high school level and him being a basketball coach at the collegiate level?
Well, he and I don't see each other very much. He's, as you know, he's very passionate about what he does. I am a little biased. I think he's very good at what he does, but he understands what I do as an athletic director, and I understand what he does as a coach. And it's never been an issue for us in terms of time. We don't celebrate holidays on the right day. We don't celebrate birthdays on the right day. We take the next closest day. In fact, on Valentine's Day, my almost 6-year-old daughter wanted her dad to take her out on Valentine's Day, and so I told him that's what you're going to go do. And we ended up not even celebrating together, which was fine. We just understand each other. Our schedules are so busy. During the pandemic, we weren't sure going into it when they sent everybody home and said you have to be there, and we don't know when you're coming back. And we kind of looked at each other and thought, okay, now we're going to see if we really like each other, because we just never ever see each other. While the country was going through a lot of tough times, it was good for our family. We got to spend a lot of time together that we don't get to do. Went for walks and do stuff like that. But like you said, it goes from the season October to March, and then it goes to recruiting season, which goes throughout the summer. And so I heard some of your all's former podcasts talk about athletic directors not really having hobbies, and I've thought about that when people say, what are your hobbies? And for me right now in this season of life, it's being a coach's wife is my hobby. Making goodie bags when they go on road trips and having them out to our house. And then being a mom and anything that we can do with her, because there's just not a lot of spare time that goes outside of that. But in terms of Sutton, now Sutton and I get to spend a lot of time together. She is a trooper. We only have one. Justin and I got married a little bit later on in life and, got a little older and we were only able to have one. But luckily for us, she is a really, really easy kid. She's very adaptable. She's never had a bedtime in her life. It's when we get home from an event and, that's never affected her. She's never been an emotional kid. And I've been able to drag her everywhere with me. Now, all that to say, both of our parents live in town and so live close to us. And so we have a lot of help. My sister lives here. His sister lives 45 minutes away. So not to say we do it all on our own because our families spend a lot of time with her. But when I've needed to drag her to events, she's going to spend her 6th birthday in 2 days at the state basketball tournament. That's where we celebrated her first birthday, was at the state basketball tournament. So I thought I dodged a bullet by having her right after Justin's season, and then realized, no, I just got her into playoffs, had her during playoffs. But the kid doesn't care. And luckily for all of us, we have a similar personality. We just enjoy the time that we are able to get together.
And I feel like you really just kind of touched on a whole bigger point where my husband actually was joking over the weekend about how there should be a paradox too, where we talk to AD spouses, because
Right.
that support that you have at home is really vital to, I think, a lot of AD success, and having somebody who understands what you're doing and why you're doing it and your passion for it at home is just really an awesome thing to have. And it sounds like you definitely have that with your husband. And being a coach, he probably understands it even further.
He does. And I think we both provide a unique perspective because, and Dustin knows him. When I say he's very, very passionate, everything he does basketball related, he's very passionate about. And so sometimes that can come at the expense. And I joke, I think all basketball coaches are a little whiny on some areas, and I'll tell him that. But when he does that, and I'm able to provide a perspective to him, like, hey, if you came to me and said that, this is what I would say back to you. And it may not be something he likes at the time, but he's very receptive to that. Now, on the flip side, there's times that, I've had a long week and I am tired, and I'll sit down and, he'll be like, man, I can't believe, whatever, so-and-so didn't reach out and tell so-and-so congratulations, they just won a big game. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh man, I was there. I mean, surely that coach knows I support him. But then he'll provide a perspective like, no, you need to reach out and let him or her know that, not just because you were there. And so he's able to point out a few things to me as well of, man, I wish our administration would do this, that, or whatever. And then I can sit back and think, oh yeah, that's important to a coach, instead of getting into the details of what we're doing and just thinking that's enough.
So I usually ask people to tell me what a resume won't tell me, and so you've done that already. So you took away one of my favorite questions. But I do
Good job, Emily.
I do want to talk about, for those that are geographically challenged, we mentioned this on several podcasts, where Union's located and what that is in the state of Oklahoma.
Sure. We are in the northeast part of the state, and we're the second largest school by ADM, by average daily membership. There's school districts. We are one high school in our district. We're 20 square miles. And just to put that into perspective, Broken Arrow is the largest high school in the state, and they are by about 400 kids, ADM wise, 9 through 12. We have about 4,200. They have about 4,600. And they're the largest, and they have 200 square miles for their district. And so we're kind of landlocked in here. Don't anticipate just a ton of growth. Plan to stay one high school just because of geography. I mean, for those of you who've never been to Tulsa, we sit at 71st and Mingo, and 71st and Mingo is kind of the center of Tulsa in terms of We have a big mall next to us. We have a pretty big bonding capacity at the moment because of um, the restaurants and shops and everything that's right around us. So we are about a 75% free and reduced school district at the moment. And if you just looked at our facilities, you would never think that. But again, we have a big bonding capacity, which we're able to do a lot of capital growth improvements on buildings and facilities. But we do have quite a range of demographics and social status within our students here at our school.
And what she's not telling you is the athletic success that they've had at Union. She's talked about some of their competitors, Jinx being one of those. And Jinx and Union for, I believe it was 20 years, one of them won the state title. And many times they were playing each other in the state championship football games. So, and it wasn't a small capacity. We'll talk about some of that, I think, in a little bit. But Emily oversees a very successful athletic program that is a standard in the state of Oklahoma, and not just Oklahoma, but regionally as well. People know what Union is. People know what Jinx is, and they're competitors that play each other quite frequently. So, Emily, let's just jump into it. Let's talk about we've given some backstory. let's have some fun. Let's laugh a little bit. But let's jump into. I know you got a couple stories for us. So lead off with what you think is a great story for you.
Well, hearing your all's first opening podcast with Becky, it just, I think it kind of gave me post-traumatic stress disorder of all the times you could call us streaking you. And for those who didn't hear her podcast talking about situations where, student athlete or not a student athlete, a student in the school, might have come across there. And so it took me back to one of my early years whenever I was here. Like Dustin said, Jinx and Union played for a state championship for 20 years. Not each of us. One of us won the state championship for 20 years in a row. And actually that's who we lost to this year in the state championship was Jinx again, because of, the tradition that they've had in there. But this was in 1999, prior to myself being here. I was actually at the University of Tulsa as a student, but they had to move the football game over there because we can only hold about 12,000 people here, and Jinx at the time could hold about 7 or 8. And the game was drawing so much attention that they had 40,000 fans come to a game, and so they moved it over to the University of Tulsa. So fast forward a little bit, and in one of my very first years here, young administrator, I got hired when I was 24 as an assistant athletic director, and never really, I didn't coach or teach. I coached while I was in college as like a student assistant because I was able to do it. I'm a Union graduate, so I stayed close to home, and the memories I had just with everything as a student athlete, just really, I knew this was what I actually walked into our athletic director as a senior in high school, and I laughing one day, put my feet up on his desk and said, "I'm going to take your job one day." And at the time he just handed me his keys and said, "You can have it right now." And at the time I was thinking, man, he has the coolest job in the world. Not knowing what all goes behind the scenes, although I still think we have the coolest job in the world with its challenges. But at that time, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I went to the University of Tulsa and just helped over here. And so got hired at a really young age to come back because the people here, it wasn't because of anything else except for that I had made relationships, and the people here had been here when I was in high school, and they knew of me. And so I'm 24, coming to one of our first games. We're at the University of Tulsa. At this time it had calmed down a little bit, 25,000 people, at this game.
But you're not at your facility. You're normal, the back of your hand. You don't know it.
Right. So, our administrative duties at that game, our principals were working their tails off behind the University of Tulsa had these areas behind their stands where kids just went and were acting stupid and fights and all kinds. So they're all into that. But as an administrator, I don't know how you all feel, but I love away games. Holy cow, you get to actually watch the game for the first time ever. So, I'm feeling pretty good about this. And we're over there. We're in the corner, caddy corner. I'm sure the Jinx admin was in the far corner. And lo and behold, I look up and there's a kid jumps the fence or drops off the side of it. TU kind of sits down a little bit. So it's a 5-foot drop. He has like the Jamaica type beanie on his head, so it's every color. And you may wonder why I remember so much about this, but he had that on and a pair of socks, and that was it.
Why
And
the socks? Why the socks?
I don't know. And the kid is running diagonal straight to the corner where I'm standing with about 5 or 6 security guards. And so I'm thinking, this is the only way to get out of the stadium is where he's running at us. All I'm thinking as a 24-year-old girl is, one, I'm not getting near that. I don't know who's taking him down, but it's not going to be me. And then 2, I can see the look in all these security guards' eyes, like, I'm not doing it either. So anyways, he makes his way through. This is right where you start pointing fingers saying, he's not our kid. He's not our kid. And he flashes the upside down U. And so I feel pretty confident that it's not one of our kids as he's flashing it at our student section. And they do tackle him, put him in the back of a police car. I think at some point may have gotten some clothes on him. And it's, this is live TV. This is 25,000 people. And we're just dying, it becomes, who tackled him, which one, got him and all that. But then the reality sat in, and it was a really pretty scary deal for a little bit because, indecent exposure, all kinds of things. They start talking about charges for this poor kid. And, now and the way they would have they talked about doing it was per exposure. And so, you have 25,000 tickets sold. So you've got that easy number. And then they do impressions off of TV, even though I think live TV cut off, there's still a delay on there, but they're like, well, it was on TV, all this stuff. And so, as an athletic director, I'm thinking, what in the world? And that probably stands out as one of the craziest moments in terms of why a kid would do that. But I do want to point out, you've noticed in all of these things, it's never been a girl that's jumped over. Never.
I was just going to say that these streakers are not females.
No. Dustin, do you have any insight on why? Or we just
we need answers.
Wired a little bit better?
Mm-hmm. I will say this. Dustin has never been part of a streaking episode, just so we can get that out there. So we can't blame guys. But yes, I'm with you that it's been mostly males. I've never seen a female do it. So I wish I had some explanation for it. I just don't know that our brains are wired a little differently. We just think it's a great idea in that moment, and it's really not a great idea. We're just more impulse and say, that's what I'm trying to get in that mindset, and I can't.
Well, typically, I think I've found when these things happen and you get down to the, I don't have to deal. Our athletic department is completely separate in terms of we don't report to a high school principal. So usually I can go back and say, well, what they do discipline wise, having not to have to do anything with that. And a lot of times is, well, the kid got offered $100. I'm like, dang, it would have taken me so much more than $100 if you didn't consider doing something like that.
I would like to resort back to that first episode when I said there wasn't enough zeros on that for me.
Exactly.
When it was $200.
Exactly. What it is about $100 to get somebody to jump over and do that.
And the socks, like it's a male and their socks always like what?
Yes.
If we keep having these, we're going to have to call it parasox instead of paradox for this situation. But my question to you, Emily, is we go back to that situation, that kid running smooth at you.
Yeah.
Are you thinking I'm going to make an attempt and just, miss the tackle, or I'm not even going to try it. I may try to trip him if that's the case, but I ain't touching any part of him. What is your mindset of, how am I going to not look like I'm not doing my job? But
Right.
a naked teenage kid's running at me.
Yeah, I think I got a free pass on that no matter what I was going to do on it. And in that moment, I thought, this, no, we've got security here for a reason, and I'm not getting in the middle of any of this.
Well,
I think
and your
that's where, as
hands
a girl, you can say, I'm out.
and your
No
hands are a
part of
little
it.
tied too, because you're not even at your facility.
No,
You're
no.
at someone else's facility.
And we don't know at this point if it's even our kid. Not that you can put your hands on, your own kids, but there's just so much more that you're like, I don't know. And I think, in terms of security, they tackle first and then ask those questions later. We'll just take care of the situation.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those situations where a player has actually just made the tackle.
Oh
Like
my
if they
gosh.
run out there and some kid just waylays this kid and tackles him and says, "All right, I'll help security and just get him down."
Yeah.
I guess none of that happened either.
No, I really think it was a moment. That was a long time ago. I think it was a moment where they were separated in their huddles, and the kid found a great opportunity. Maybe after a touchdown or something, and thought, "Okay, now's my chance." Got all eyes on me.
So
So,
did the charges ever get filed or pressed, or was
I
he?
I don't remember. I think that at that point, the scaring the kid and doing all that, I don't think anything ended up being legally charged. I'm sure there was some suspension from school, or
Mhm.
once they found his wallet wherever that might have been, trying to figure out who the kid was. And that's the other thing. Unfortunately, we've had several of these situations. The first, and not always, again, it's not always um completely, without clothes. Sometimes they're just kids running on the field, but they're always say, "No, I'm not a union student. No, I'm not and you're thinking, we're going to get to the bottom of it. You might as well just tell us who you are. We've got you here. You might as well tell us who you are." So,
I mean, I don't know how you don't know every one of your 4,200 kids.
And were you invited to play back there ever again after that?
We did. Now we haven't played there the last couple years, and I think our games were way more challenging to manage from their perspective than a college game. Because think back of a collegiate game, the people that go to those games are going to watch the game. You're usually paying, whether it's sometimes a $20 ticket, but you're not going to pay that and not go watch it. Unfortunately for the high school atmosphere, sometimes we would play on Thursday nights, just because if the University of Tulsa had a game on a Saturday, we'd have to play it on Thursday by conference rules. And so when we did that, that was drawing the neutral fan coming to that. So you got neutral students coming to it that they were coming to pick fights, or they were, there was a lot of extra people being there. So we now host the game back at our place, and I think Jinx is going to start hosting it back at there. They've done a little bit of renovations, and the numbers haven't justified quite going over there. Again, when we made that move, our coach wanted it back here. Our school board, we're opening a brand new stadium with it's a $55 million renovation of the whole campus, and everybody wanted to show it off except for myself and our assistant AD, who was like, "Oh, it's so much easier when it's at the University of Tulsa. Can we please keep that game over there?" But no, we had traded out a few games this last year because we only had half of the stadium, and with COVID capacity. So we traded out our big games. So we started out our first 4 games as sellouts here at the new stadium, which again is about 12,000. And by that week 4 or 5, you're just exhausted from the questions that go into that and everything.
But my question is, this student may have just been a student, not a union or a Jinx student. It may
Sure.
just been a student who, I guess this is the wrong thing to say, I guess he had a lot of skin in the game, but may not have had a skin in the game. Just invested.
Yeah.
And that's probably you can't get out of your head.
You bring up a good point. We had a soccer match this past spring, and just a quick story on that, because you could talk all day about these, but we were playing Jinx, and it was a big game, and it was on TV. And on our soccer we don't play soccer at our football stadium. We have a separate soccer complex, but it only has fan seating on one side. So the other side is pretty much where the scoreboard is, and there's nothing over on that side. So there's really, we haven't put security. I mean, there's really no reason to be over there. You can tell if somebody's over there. But sure enough, during this game, kid jumps out of the stands, runs across. He has his clothes on, but he proceeds to pull his pants down and moon the crowd, or two of them, and then go to the corner and scale the fence because nobody was over there and get out of there. The problem was we have really good cameras all around our 8th grade center where those games were being held. And we were able to track where the getaway van, and their mistake is they pulled the getaway van to the other side and decided to put their clothes on and come back into the game. So then we had them on camera, and come to find out it was a Broken Arrow student. It wasn't even a Union or a Jinx student, as we're all like, no, it wasn't one of ours. No, it wasn't one of ours. And he was just, again, a kid who said, well, they paid me $100 to go do it. And we did it, and they weren't in our playoff. And so he chose to do that since he wasn't playing that game.
As if that rationale makes any sense or makes it okay.
Right.
Hey, I'm not a student at one of these, but I think this is a great idea to go out there and pull my pants down and moon the crowd. And then the thought process of, let me get into the getaway van and go to the other side and get back into the game.
Right. Oh. Don't know the thought process there.
Yeah, I can't even pretend to get in that mindset because I don't know. Maybe Danielle, she may have some experience with that, but I have zero.
Justin, these are all male students. They're your people. These are your people.
They are my gender, yes, but not one of these would happen at my game. I'm just saying from your game.
You just jinxed yourself. Oh,
so
no.
Poor game management. Yeah.
Girl, you shouldn't have said that.
It's about to happen.
Yeah, it is.
I'm just going to Jinx Union and watching
getting
that
antsy over there. Emily, you see him getting antsy? He's like, oh no.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that. So let me just put that out there on the record. I don't want any part of that.
Yes.
No, you've doomed yourself already.
I may go Emily Barkley on them. I may go Becky Moran on them and just be like, we got security guards for a reason.
But see, the difference now too, though, is Dustin, is back when this happened to Emily and Becky, there wasn't like social media. If this happens to you now, like, we're gonna get to see it all. It's going to be recorded, and we're gonna get to watch it and see what you do and your reaction and perhaps your tackle.
Well, the reality is, and I'm gonna go back to what I said to Three Socks. I'm gonna say there's laws against guys touching guys that aren't clothed. So
it's uncomfortable, yeah.
I'm going to let security handle that. Hopefully they don't break out a taser because I'd feel bad for that kid if they get hit with that. But that's a whole nother crap. But the story is not about me. These are Emily's stories. Let's focus back on Emily.
But I do want to come back when you have your story, and I want to hear that one.
Yeah, there's one of these that we're probably going to have to tell stories, and I've already offered Danielle's husband the opportunity to tell stories from his point of view.
I've declined for him
on here because she don't talk in front of people, so it's great for me. But anyway, let's get back to Emily and talk about why we're here. Emily, you got another story, I think.
Yes, I do, and I'm going to sneak one in there. I didn't run it by y'all earlier, but I think this is the real part of our job that I think some people can relate to. I want to tell a very embarrassing moment on myself as a young. So I've been at Union for 18 years, and 8 of it I was an assistant AD, and so 10 years ago I'm finishing my 10th year as the AD. So I think it might have been 10 years ago, one of my first jobs, and you guys know. This job demands a lot. Nobody ever, and I know this, I can say this because I was the assistant AD, but when things go really wrong, nobody says, let me have the assistant AD's number. I'm going to call them and let them have it. So normally it's the AD, and what way we try to do it here is we divide up some sports, and I have some help, and, I want them to be the first line of contact. If there is, because after a while, when I first took over, I thought, I can't do this every day, get emails and get beat up. And it wasn't personal, but it felt like every situation. And you just can't be in crisis mode all the time for that. And so kind of divided those up a little bit. But I got an email one day and it just caught me in one of those moments where I was really just trying to get through things really fast. Like I told you guys earlier, I'm a type A. So when I answer an email, it's filed. When I handle a situation, it's filed, and we file it and move on and tackle the next thing. And so I got an email from
or don't tackle the next thing.
Or don't, in my case, don't tackle it. But I got an email from some random person, and he was very nice. And this is where I start to feel bad, but very nice. And he said, I saw that you guys had your track team had gotten this relay in whatever time they ran it in, and I was on the track team 40 years ago, and I think we might have beat it. Can you look in your records and let me know what the actual record is? Blah, blah, blah. Well, again, I've been here 18 years. We don't keep record. I don't in the athletic office keep records of our track team or our coaches have done that. And when you lose a coach, sometimes things are lost, and it can just go that way. And so you do what the best you can. And so I reach out to our head track coach at the time, and he's a good friend of mine. He's no longer here, but real good friend of mine. Hey, coach, can you look this up and let me know? And he writes back, and unfortunately I don't have record of it. Here's our fastest time, whatever. So I kind of send it back to the gentleman and say, hey, look, our coach looked into it, and he writes back and he goes, no, I think it was this year and this, and he starts giving me a little more detail. And so at this point I'm pretty frustrated. He's trying to be nice, but really, what does it matter 40 years ago that there might have been a time that was like a split second, like maybe we have it recorded wrong. And so I'm thinking, all I want to do is get this done, go on to my next task. So I send to our coach and I said, Coach, can you look this, whatever? And I said, or just make it up. I don't care. Just give me an answer of what this time is so I can give this guy back an answer. So he forwards me back an answer, and I hit forward on that email. Hey, sir, I found the answer for you, blah, blah, blah. Uh-oh. Not knowing that further down the email, it was the chain I had sent to my coach that had said, hey, just make something up. I really don't care. I've got to appease this guy and move on type of deal. And the email I received back from this man was probably the most honest and most scathing email I've received. I'm sorry to have bothered you. I'm sorry to have taken too much of your time, and oh man, I just felt incredibly, that is not the person I am. What little Dustin knows about me, I would never, my goal is to make people happy. I'm a people pleaser. I like, that. And so I ate it, and I just told him, look, that's my fault. I was in a hurry. I was trying to get through it. Because I had a million things on my plate, isn't your fault that you were asking a question. And luckily he was very nice in his response and said, I completely understand and I appreciate the email back. But I wanted to share that because I thought, those are situations we're all gonna have streakers one day, Dustin. But this might prevent a young AD thinking, just be real careful what you write down on an email. Be real careful when you forward stuff back without going back through the email to see what you're about to forward and who you're about to forward it to.
Well, and I had a almost identical thing happen with relay for track about 40 years ago. Same thing. Coaches changed. It was a long time. I was 5 when it happened. Right. There's no way I have records of this. I didn't forward the email, but I felt what you were feeling, the exact same thing, where I was I've done everything I could do to try to locate this information. I went back and looked in yearbooks. Right. So sometimes that stuff can be difficult when you want to help, but you really don't have time to help. And yeah,
right.
I didn't forward it though. I didn't do that.
Yeah, that's a bad feeling. I'm glad you did.
So I'm going to just go out there and say Emily has not forwarded us any emails, so she could be making up all of this stuff. We don't know. but there's no proof that she isn't. I know she's not, but
Yeah.
those moments, and we all have them, when you stick your foot in your mouth and you wish you hadn't. And
Right.
sometimes I feel like all I do is open my mouth to change feet because I'm doing something different that I probably. I mean, we all have those stories. Reality
Right.
is, and I appreciate you being honest and real there, because I think people listening need to understand that we're going to have those moments. You're trying to check off a list, and sometimes you may just honestly respond, "Hey, I'm just trying to get this handled,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
here's the mess up I had because of it." Well, now we don't. We know with the paper trail now. You definitely don't put that out there, but
Right. And thank goodness, I don't think, Twitter or whatever. I mean, email could have been in this day and age, it could have been copied and put on there. And this is the athletic director you have at your school, and this is how she handles things. And, you feel like, okay, dodged a bullet. Just like not having cell phone cameras in high school. I feel like our generation dodged a bullet on that one, for the stupid
yeah,
stuff that you do that's documented now that, you know, probably everyone has done in their entire life. It's just now you get it caught on a camera and turned in
the
because
world sees it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
well, you talked about our previous episode with Three Socks Moran. And it's fitting we're doing that on International
Right.
Women's Day, and I want to celebrate both of you two for
Mhm.
being
Thank
leaders in our field and our profession as females. I want to say that to begin with, but you also referenced Cole Canyer and his live chicken episode, and I think you've got a little bit of chicken. Not that you played chicken with the streaker earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but another chicken story.
Yes, yes. When I was messaging with Danielle just about some funny things that had happened in my career. I said, "Well, there's a situation with a chicken." I said, "It wasn't a real chicken, but it was a chicken." And then lo and behold, I'm listening to your episodes, and there was actually a situation with real chicken. So I don't know if this holds as much weight anymore, but it was a funny situation. Just in short, there I was an assistant AD here. We had an athletic director that is now a superintendent at one of the local schools, and he's 10 years older than me. And then we have another assistant who's 10 years older than him. So there's, pretty good age gap, but the three of us just really, really got along well. We enjoyed ourselves outside of work. You spend so much time inside of work, but just created really good relationships. And two of us are alike, myself and he's now my assistant AD, Steve Dunlap, and the one who's the superintendent at a local school is very type B and just a global thinker and very smart, but kind of an airhead at times on some things. And so I'm very detail oriented. And anyways, we have a football game, and we are already on heightened awareness because, like I said, people run through all the time on the fields, or I make it sound like that, but it's happened, probably 5 times in my career, 5 too many. But it's, halftime performance, a huge game, and our band is out there, and our band is outstanding. They bring as many fans to our football, as our state championship football team does. And so they're performing, and it's their moment, and I'm on the radio, and they're on my sister, the AD and assistant AD are on the radio, and all of a sudden this kid in a chicken costume jumps the fence and starts weaving in and out of the band performance. And I don't know what to say. And so all I keep saying on the radio is there's a chicken on the field. There's a chicken on the field. Where is it? It's running through. It's heading towards Mingo. There is a chicken on the field. And so we're all scattered out in different parts. And some people aren't even, I think our AD was behind the stadium, so he couldn't even see what's going on. What do you mean there's a chicken on the field? Was there a chicken on the field? He's running to the corner, and our person that was guarding the gate wasn't doing a very good job. And so the chicken jumps the fence and heads out to Mingo, which is our busy street that our stadium sits on. And principals are jumping the fence and security, and they're running halfway down, and they finally, catch this kid in the parking lot. And he, lo and behold, one of our students had the chicken costume, and not sure how he got it into the stadium with nobody seeing, but that's a game management story for another day. But And so afterwards, we're all exhausted. It's one of these big games, and we're sitting up. We always kind of debrief. Sometimes we'll go to Village Inn. We call it the victory breakfast. We'll go, at midnight, and what happened to you tonight? Well, what happened to you? And so we're all sitting here talking about the game, and the AD, who hadn't seen any of it, just finally said, "So tell me, there was a chicken on the field?" Yes, there's a chicken on the field. I go through the whole thing. Jump aside, run through, head towards Mingo. Principals jump after him, tackle him. He's like, a chicken ran through the field. I'm sitting here thinking, yes, what do we get about that? There's a chicken that ran on the field. Jump the fence, head towards Mingo, And finally he's like, well, when it jumped the fence, why didn't they just let the chicken go? And I'm sitting here thinking, what does he not get about this? And I finally said, it was a kid dressed up. He goes, oh, I thought you meant there was a real chicken running through the field, weaving in and out of the band and going around there.
He thinks you're chasing a chicken out in the parking lot on
Yeah,
the street.
I mean, he at midnight, as we're sitting in this office talking about the game, the big game, and how we made it through, he could not fathom why everybody, once the chicken jumped the fence, why didn't we just let it go? And we had to explain, no, it was a kid, and he was in a chicken costume, and so it's been a good story that we've been able to keep going for a long time.
So you had like a legit Cal Stanford moment, but it was when the band was out on the field. Here comes the chicken. Now he probably didn't hit any of those kids. Like
no.
But
yep.
I'm trying to rationalize in my mind with the guy that was the AD at the time. I've been to Union, and they're not like it's not like it's a 2-foot fence.
Right.
So when a chicken jumps the fence, I'm thinking this is not. How is that even remotely possible?
I know. I mean, my husband's the country guy. I wasn't. I was raised smack dab here in the middle of city of Tulsa, Broken Arrow area, and so I don't know much about how high chickens can jump. But in my mind, I'm thinking, what does he not get about this? And when I realized that, I think if it had been a real one, it would have maybe more or less crawled over the fence. I'm not sure that, a chicken could have scaled that, because it's a good 4-foot fence over there.
I'm just happy that the kid had a chicken costume on.
Yes, that he was clothed. Absolutely.
I'm just grateful for the chicken costume at this point.
Absolutely.
I think the funny things of this, to me, I start thinking about, did the chicken or the egg come first? Well, obviously in this case it was a chicken, but it's fitting that you may be having a victory breakfast at Village Inn, which probably involves some eggs. I mean,
yep.
That's just where my mind goes. It's just, but throughout these, Emily, can you think of some takeaways that may be beneficial for our ADs that may be listening, that from a game management standpoint, from just, I mean, there's things you can and can't do, but as you look back on the stories that you've shared with us, are there some takeaways that you glean from these situations?
Yeah, I think that everybody's goal is to plan everything in advance so that nothing happens during a game that's not supposed to, whether it's at the ticket gate, whether it's a fight in the stands, or, that drunk fan that you have to kick out. You put so much time and effort, at least we do, into trying to make sure those situations don't happen. Your goal is to watch a game, but as we said earlier, when you have home events, that very rarely happens for an AD. And so you try to do all those things. And probably the biggest takeaway is, no matter what you do to plan and prepare and have people in place, there's going to be situations that happen. And so I think, the fact that even as an AD, he didn't rush out there and panic and have a meltdown. I mean, he let us handle the situation. He let the principals, he let the people he put in charge handle those. And then 2 hours later said, now tell me a little bit about, that. And so I think that, knowing that you can't control every situation, those situations are going to happen. You don't sit here and plan, well, what if we have a streaker run across the field today? What are we going to do? You just kind of tell and learn from those stories, and you try to, I mean, at soccer now, we position a security guard on the opposite side. We learn from that. If somebody's going to jump it, they're not going to get very far because somebody's going to be over there to get it, and maybe do some tweaks then. But I think no matter how much planning and preparing you do, you just have to understand that situations are going to happen, and then hopefully that you have a calmness about you to handle those situations as they come up.
And it just sounds like that debriefing is a big part of that. You've made,
Yep.
adjustments to your game because you debrief as a whole department and figure out what you need to do to be better. So
Right.
just as much as that preventive planning goes in there, you got to debrief and then alter that plan.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
in spite of the bad juju you guys put on me, don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby. I don't want any speakers of any kind.
You did it to yourself.
I ain't ready for any of that. But I think still thinking through that process of you can't have a plan for every single thing that will occur. You've been doing this since you were 2, since you've been doing it for 18 years. You were well advanced like Doogie Howser. But I think the reality is you've seen things that you didn't have any planning for.
Right.
We talked about with Cole that you don't have a chicken plan.
Well,
'Cause
chicken
you don't
plan.
expect chickens. And now this is chicken plan 2.0. Now we got to do a different thing. What if it's with the band? And
Mhm.
the thing that strikes me is that wasn't had anything to do with the football game itself, like the game being played. This was a halftime performance, and for the band kids, that's a huge opportunity for them to showcase what they do and show their value, and there's something that they're connected to. And then all of a sudden, a chicken runs through there. It's a student trying to interrupt that. Did the band continue to play, or did they get sidetracked?
They didn't miss a beat. It was like there was no chicken anywhere on there, and you nailed it right there. So that opportunity is for them. That opportunity is to showcase that the amount of hours they put into practice before school, after school. I mean, it rivals what all of our athletic events are doing, and our coaches and our teams. And so you hate in that moment. As an AD, I probably took a deep breath. Okay, it's the 16 minutes the band's going to be on there. I don't have to worry about a thing. And then all of a sudden realize, oh, wait, I do. It's still in
Right.
the middle of this, but you don't expect that. And that's my take a deep breath before it all starts back up moment. And um, you're not afforded that anymore, because once that event starts until it's in, unfortunately or fortunately, good or bad, it all falls back on you as the AD, because we are fortunate to be at a district. Our superintendent is a former coach. My boss is a former coach. Our associate superintendent's a former coach, so they get it, and they stay out of our way and they let us do our jobs. And so you want that to be the best product out there, so they continue to do that without getting too far into it. And so, in those situations, you're thinking, man, what could we have done? And they're few and far between, but they're obviously the ones that stand out 15 years later or 10 years later, because it just doesn't happen every day like that.
Well, don't think I missed what you said. They didn't miss a beat.
I got it
I
too.
appreciate a good pun when it's thrown in there.
Heard
So
what she did
uh,
there.
great use there. I applaud that. But Emily, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for spending some time with us, and thank you for listening, and thank you for just laughing with us today, and even at your own expense at one of these, just to be able to tell a story
Right.
that's real. But I appreciate what you do in our profession. I appreciate your willingness to get on here and share. It's been a fun time for me.
Yeah, thank you all so much, Danielle. It was nice to spend some time with you, and Dustin. I can't wait for you to come back up and see our facilities over here.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
compound. Yeah, I'm telling you, when I say the University of Tulsa is jealous of what they have, there's no joke. I mean, they are very fortunate at Union to have the facilities that they have, and Emily would be the first to tell you they're
Yeah,
blessed to be able to do that. Um, I don't say that, and she won't say it in an arrogant way whatsoever. It's
right.
just it's an impressive thing. And when I was growing up, Jinx Union was the game. I mean, Oklahoma State is big in the state of Oklahoma, but from a high school perspective, it wasn't any bigger than Jinx and Union. And she's in the chair at Union, which is impressive to me.
Well, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Emily. It was awesome chatting with you and hearing your stories. And I think we need to check up with Dustin about his streaker plan. I do think he needs to come up with that sooner rather than later, for sure.
Well, I'm gonna make a phone call to you after this, Emily. We're gonna work on this together. Have some expertise.
An emergency action plan that deals with streaking. We'll get it. We will
With
get it.
nudity and kids. I think there's some laws against that too, so I don't know if I can put that on paper.
Absolutely.
Well, Emily, we again thank you for your time. We thank Ticket Spicket for sponsoring this episode and every episode of Paradox, and hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've had fun. And I know I can speak on behalf of Emily. If you want to reach out to her, she's available. She's a resource that you will be glad that you have in your Rolodex. Back in the day, Rolodex. I guess now it's just your phone. But if you want to reach out to Emily, I'm just going to volunteer it for her. She'd be happy to visit with you and talk about things from her viewpoint as well. And again, being a female, I know she's big in the DEI part of the NIAAA, and I don't want to underscore that whatsoever. I think that's very valuable. I commend Emily for her diligence in that committee and being part of what they're doing. So my hat's off to you, Emily, for jumping in and doing that, and also being a female in a very male dominant world.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we will see everyone next week for another episode.